few years ago, General Motors unveiled an all-new 2019 Chevrolet Silverado full-size pickup, and we were pretty impressed with a lot of its abilities, its capabilities, its durability. But the one area that we weren't terribly thrilled with was the interior, and we weren't alone. The calls for a new interior on the Silverado were loud and they were widespread. And so for the 2022 model year, Chevrolet has now come with this. This is the new 22 Silverado 1500. And on the LT trim level and above, it has an all-new interior. But that's not the only change that Chevy has made for the 22 model year. There's some new technological advancements as well, and there's even a new top off-road trim level, the ZR2. So let's have a look at the new 22 Silverado and see if the changes that Chevy has made are really going to make a big difference. Now, the styling changes to the Silverado really aren't that great. It looks pretty much like it did for the 2019 model year, but they've made a few refinements. The headlights, the grille, all a little bit lower, a little bit wider, trying to emphasize the width of the Silverado. It looked good before. I still think it looks pretty good. But the styling changes outside really aren't the news today. The big news is inside. The big changes are in here, where it has an all-new interior on the LT trim level and above. The biggest change is this thing. It's a 13.4-inch diagonal touchscreen. It fills up most of the center console, and it's big, it's bright, it's canted towards the driver, so it's fairly easy to use, and it really does look good. In front of you, front and center here, is a 12.3-inch display, fully digital, fully reconfigurable to a number of different options as well. If there isn't a configuration in this gauge cluster that you don't like, I don't think you're looking hard enough, because it can be changed any number of different ways. The overall interior in here is a dramatic improvement from the one before it. The horizontal orientation to the dash definitely does increase the feeling of spaciousness in this cabin. The old truck, you really kind of felt like you were facing a cliff. Now you've got a lot more space, a lot more width. It really hasn't changed dimensions at all, but it feels like it's wider. The material quality is also a bit of a step up, and this is the arrangement of a lot of these buttons. Your climate control is down low, but everything else is really easy to access and is pretty much high up on the dash. Now, this new interior comes on the LT trim level and above, as we've said. There are two trim levels below that, the work truck and the custom, but those are really bought more by commercial buyers, fleet buyers, municipalities, business owners, things like that. This is the one that really starts off for consumers. And despite it being the lowest consumer model, it really does feel considerably more luxurious in here than it did before. Just the material quality, the way things are designed, the standard digital displays, all of that adds up to a much nicer experience than we had before. But this isn't the model that they're truly proud of. The one that they really want you to see is the new High Country. Now, this is the High Country. This is the top trim luxury model of the Silverado 1500. And previously, it was kind of a hard sell in terms of justifying the price that they wanted for it. It didn't feel all that luxurious. This new one is a dramatic improvement. You've got things like real open pore wood on the doors and on the console and on the dash, even on the upper glove box trim right here. You've got stainless steel grills covering the Bose premium audio speakers. You've got really nice leather that's got stitching and perforated surfaces. And you have a choice of two colors, either jet black or this really nice blue that really does pop. Kind of hard to see it in the darkness of an interior studio like this, but I have a feeling that out in the sunlight, this is really going to be the one to have. There are a few equipment changes for 2022 as well. One of them comes with the Duramax diesel engine, the 3-liter inline-6 turbo diesel that you can get on a number of trim levels. If you specify the max tow package, you now have 13,300 pounds of maximum towing capacity. That is 4,000 pounds more than it got in 2021. Now, how'd they do that? Well, they changed the rear springs out, they gave it a larger differential with a 373 gear, and they changed the way that the engine talks to the standard 10-speed automatic transmission. All of that apparently is good for getting you another 4,000 pounds of towing capacity. Now, this one is the High Country, and on the High Country model, you can also now get Super Cruise. That is the semi-autonomous hands-free driving system that GM is offering on a number of its brands. The cool thing about doing it with the pickup is that you can also actually have a trailer behind you as well. Now, I've driven that combination in a new 22 GMC Sierra prototype, but it was on a closed course track. And on that track, actually, it works pretty well. Taking your hands off of the wheel while you're still towing a large trailer behind you is a little nerve-wracking, and we still need to see how that works out in the real world. But on a track, it does show promise. But it's not just the super expensive versions like the High Country that are getting all the mechanical attention. The base trucks are getting some too, in the form of a revised version of the 2.7-liter 4-cylinder. It's a turbocharged 4-cylinder, and it's now making an estimated 420 pounds-feet of torque. That's massive. That is more torque than you can get in the standard V8s of the Nissan Titan or the Toyota Tundra, and if this holds true, it's still an estimate at this point, but if it actually pans out to be 420 pounds-feet, it will make this the most torquey truck that you can get with a base engine out of any manufacturer in the country. Here's an interesting fact that I didn't know until today. 60% of all Chevrolet Silverados are in some way off-road capable. 30% of them are a Trail Boss trim, either LT or custom, and another 30% have the Z71 off-road package, which really tells us that y'all really like your off-road Chevys. Well, Chevrolet heard you, and so, ta-da! The ZR2, the first ever Chevrolet Silverado ZR2. And just like its smaller brother, the Colorado ZR2, it has a lot of mechanical changes to help it go off-road a lot more capably. The ZR2 gets a lot of the visual changes of the 22 Silverado, but it's got a couple of tweaks. Starts up top, where you've actually got a black insert into the hood that covers the engine. You've got new headlights, new grille, but the grille actually has something called a flow tie emblem in it. That's the bow tie badge, but it's open so that the air can actually flow through it for improved engine cooling. It's got steel bumpers and integrated skid plates, but these end caps actually are removable to help with off-road clearance while you're rock crawling. Down the side, you've got ZR2 badging on the fenders, and you've got these black plastic fender extensions to try and protect the body from flying rocks and chips and debris. The wheels themselves are 18-inch black painted wheels featuring Goodyear Wrangler Territory mud terrain tires. They're 33 inches tall, so that lifts the truck a little bit and helps it with breakover angle and actually clearing larger obstacles. Under the hood, there's only one engine option for now, a 6.2-liter V8 making 420 horsepower and 460 pounds-feet of torque. It's made it up to a standard 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, just like the Colorado ZR2, the Silverado ZR2's real magic bits are in its suspension. It's got similar Multimatic DSSV spool valve shock absorbers at all four corners. Now, that's a big, long technical word, but really what it means is you can travel off-road over some pretty decent terrain at a reasonable clip and not overheat the shocks. They're still good at higher speeds. It's got different springs for increased wheel travel. It's got skid plates underneath to help protect it against rocks and obstacles. And they've even thought of things like tucking the exhaust up a little bit higher and behind the rear bumper so that it doesn't stick out, it's not going to be damaged, and it doesn't affect the departure angle at all. Now, like the rest of the 22 Silverado lineup, you do have a new interior in the ZR2, but it's got a unique color pattern than the rest of the lineup. You've got jet black and gray stone. I'm not quite sure this is leather. I don't think this is leather. It feels like it's easy to wipe out, which would make sense in an off-road truck. But it's also got yellow stitching throughout, which really does make it look a little bit special. Pricing for the new 2022 Silverado has not yet been announced. That's coming a little bit closer to the on-sale date, and that on-sale date is also a little bit later than we'd expected. It's spring of 2022. But I guess if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that you're going to have to wait for your deliveries lately. If you'd like to learn more about the new 2022 Chevrolet Silverado, you can look everything up on cars.com.